Welcome to Read, Watch, Play, your dive into the stories we love and how they're adapted. This is episode 20.
Right off the bat, don't lie. Just stories and how they're adapted, because I don't have very nice things to say today.
But they are adapted. Episode 26, we are sinking into the sea in Venice. Climate change might be the real haunting there right now. We are covering 2023 Agatha Christie adaptation, A Haunting in Venice. I'm here with Nick Hinkson, who was thinking about this, is probably amazing at bobbing for apples with that giraffe sort of frame. Like, you're probably pretty good at that game.
Jesus Christ.
My name is Randy Berridge. Here we go.
Man, that one was brutal.
Dude, I'm saying, though, you're probably amazing at that. I don't know if you ever played, but you should get into it.
I've never tried to bob for apples, but just because now I'm going to be self-conscious about my apparent giraffe frame, I'm never doing that.
Giraffes have tall legs. Like, let's be real here. You're a tall guy. You got tall legs.
I think I thought I had a pretty proportionate body until just now. So I'm really feeling good about myself. Thanks, Randy.
You have a very normal neck. This week, Agatha Christie, Haunting in Venice. Last episode, we tackled Harry Potter. It was a big one, Sorcerer's Stone. That was our 25th episode. Heading back to spooky season. With this one, after this coming up, we got Ready Player One. We'll talk about that with some guests.
And a very special Halloween episode.
Yes. What is a very special Halloween episode?
Smile,
yes. Smile. Nick and I have been out of it. I've had 2 hurricanes. We got really drunk at a wedding on Saturday. We're in a rough state right now.
Yeah.
So just trying to survive. Nick, if people want to follow the show so they know our upcoming schedule better than I do, where can they do that?
First and foremost, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Makes a big difference if you follow and rate us 5 stars. If you have 4-star ratings or less, you can email Randy, not me, at readwatchplaypodcast@gmail.com.
I'll read them.
I will ignore them. And most importantly, or not most importantly, but equally as importantly, follow us on Instagram, because that's where we post all the upcoming news, some clips from the show. That's where we try to interact with you the most, because we want to include your thoughts on the podcast as well. So follow us there, and we will most definitely include you on the episodes.
Yeah, spoilers on this one is a little bit of a weird one. This is maybe outside of Fallout, the loosest adaptation we've done from what they consider to be the source material to the adaptation. I mean, we're going to spoil both, but this one is quite different.
Yeah, it's about as related as The Shining was. So I don't know if what Randy said is exactly true, because The Shining was such a bullshit adaptation.
This at least
one,
I was covering the same story.
Yeah, fair. This one, though, I think is the opposite, where I thought the book sucked and the movie was pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, the book
I've seen
is
it a
not
couple
even
times now.
Titled the same. It's called Hallowe'en Party. So if you go looking for A Haunting in Venice like I did, because it says it in the credits of the movie, based on an Agatha Christie story, you're not going to find a story called A Haunting in Venice. Totally different. Yeah. We'll spoil it. We've already talked a little bit about our thoughts on the mystery genre. But I don't know your relationship to Agatha Christie. Had you read an Agatha Christie before? Was this your first?
This is my first and probably last.
Oh no, buddy. Don't let it be. This is the absolute bottom of the barrel, agreed upon by fans of her. This is a tough one to start. It's just shaking his head. It is.
We'll put that one on Instagram so you can see my face, because it's a tough place to start, a great place to finish, and the feelings I had towards this book reminded me of how angry I got that you made me keep reading textbooks in the beginning of this.
Hey, you got to watch Oppenheimer because of it.
No.
Yeah, this book sucks. But
actually, this book. Oh no, sorry, I mean to cut you.
No, go for it.
Run that back. No, you got it. I'm gonna throw it in later.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a pretty big fan of the genre and Agatha. I read And Then There Were None when I was pretty young, like 13, 14. It was maybe one of my first like whodunit puzzle box mysteries, and I thought it was awesome. It's just like it was the first time I read a book where it had that classic whodunit where it all comes together in the end, and there's like this huge monologue explaining exactly what happened and how it happened and all those details you were worrying about the whole time, how they all came together. Uh, and I loved it. If I were to recommend some other things, if you ever venture back into her stuff, that book is amazing. Murder of Roger Ackroyd, I think, is my favorite.
I've
Going
heard of that
absolutely
one.
blind. Don't look anything up about it. Knocked my socks off. Even the other one, like Death on the Nile, the other movie adaptation that happened, that book is really good too. Um, I'd like to do Murder on the Orient Express at some point, but we could even not read the book because there was like a similar to not a Casino Royale, Ocean's 11. There was an old movie adaptation, and then there was the new one that was a part of like this movie trilogy
But both adaptations are based on the same book.
on the same book. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was just like a old movie adaptation, and then a newer one again. They rebooted it.
Got it.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll force you to try and dip your toe back in.
We'll see.
But you had said prior, mystery is not your absolute go-to genre, but you enjoy it, in some fashion.
I do, but I need to cherry pick the best books in the genre for
Yeah.
me to really enjoy it. Actually, Michaela is super into like psychological thrillers,
Yeah.
mystery books. So she's recommended some good ones. This one sucks, but some quick book recommendations, if you don't mind. The Silent Patient is probably the best psychological thriller on the market today.
I think that was on your review last year.
It was
your
my best of.
Top 7, yeah.
Yeah. And it might have been like 1 or 2 on my best of. It was that good. Another really good one is Rock, Paper, Scissors. It's also another Michaela recommendation. She's on Goodreads as well. I don't know why we don't ever say this. You and I are on Goodreads. We rate all the stuff we read, whether it's for the podcast or not. So if you ever want a book recommendation or just to see what we're doing, go there. Michaela's on there. If you like thrillers, she's got you covered. She reads like 50 of them a year. It's something insane like that. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And Michaela's Nick's partner.
Yeah, sorry.
Who's a secret third co-host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one more. All the Sinners Bleed. Fantastic read. So, over to you.
No, you're good. I'll have to check those out. I haven't read any of them. I've seen Silent Patient a lot. I think I'll have to pick that one up, especially because you had it on your list last year. I think we roll right into it. You got any rapid fire questions?
Yeah. Is this the worst book we've read on the show?
No, Argyle I hated way more than this.
It's a bad take.
Easy. No, this is absolute bottom of the barrel though. I have a question for you. Okay. What role would you play in a detective novel? I'll give you some options. You could be the detective. You could be the sidekick, the Ariadne Oliver. You could be just the brute force. What's that guy's name in the movie? Who's just his policeman henchman friend? Are you the person who's trying to escape the situation at all costs? Are you the person who's unknowingly making themselves suspicious by just being their normal self?
That's probably me. I'm going to stop you right there. Because something weird's going to happen. I'm going to be like, nope, I'm out. I'm gone. See you, bye. And they're going to be like, that's, you need to sit down. We're going to question you, the artist.
Yeah. I am dumbfounded in these movies when the people like stay in the situation. I'm like, Poirot is not a real police officer. Like, you do not have to stay in this house. Just leave.
No authority.
Yeah, if they I'm out of here. I'm not staying in this creepy house with you.
Yeah.
This is wild. Not happening. Do you have any other rapid fires?
Yeah, and they're going to build off each other. So the first one is, do you think an adaptation has to be true to the source material or true to the essence of the source material?
I mean, this is an absolute case. I think we're going to talk about this where the movie is way better than the book. And in that case, take all the freaking liberties you want. I I I don't get too hung up. I don't know. Maybe I'm picky and choosy with like when I care about that. If it's something that we covered like last episode that's beloved to me, Harry Potter, like yeah, I'm going to get my panties in a bunch if you're messing around with the source material. But for something like this, I'm like, have at it. Like, I don't really care that much. Like, if I enjoy the end product, I don't truly care. But I'll respect people if this is like a meaningful story to them and they're like, this is not what I wanted it to be. I think essence is more important. I think we've talked about that. But I don't know. I play fast and loose with the rules. What about you?
I agree that I probably pick and choose, but I would say the essence.
Yeah.
In the spirit of rapid fire, I'm not going to elaborate on that.
That's true. That was not a... All right.
But
did you have another one, or should I roll on the synopsis?
Nah, just hit the synopsis.
Yeah. So, British mystery novelist Ariadne Oliver, who may or may not be Agatha Christie, is visiting her friend in a quaint British village. At a children's Halloween party hosted by wealthy local woman Rowena Drake, a 13-year-old girl named Joyce Reynolds is murdered in the bobbing for apples tank. Does not have the reach of Nick Hinkson in that tank. But not before. Joyce had boasted to the party that she had witnessed a murder. Enigmatic detective, as they all seem to be, Hercule Poirot, is called in to investigate the murder and unravel a string of mysteries plaguing this local town of Woodley Common. That is the synopsis to one of the most boring mystery novels I've ever read in my entire life.
It was bad. And the problem with this is there's obviously interesting characters because in the adaptation, they stayed pretty true to some of these characters, and it made for like a good movie. I don't think that writers have, or true creatives, I don't think have a finite amount of good, wonderful ideas in them, including authors, writers. I do think there is a finite amount of give a shit that people have about anything, whether they're passionate about it or not. And I think this really came on the tail end of Agatha Christie's give a shit factor. Yeah. And I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, this was published in 1969. Her first novel came out in 1921. She's 48 years into her writing life. This is like the 40th Poirot novel that he's featured in. For context of like where this sits in, her final novel before she died was in 1974. So this is only 5 years prior. Not only is this like late in her life, that's late in the detective life, the fictional life of Poirot. And like, I feel like it comes across like everything about this book just feels tired and like phoned in. And like, I have no idea what she was going through at the time, but I do know enough about Agatha Christie that she was getting a lot of pressure from publishers to just churn these out. And this kind of feels like that a little bit. It gives that vibe. It just feels like unorganized and like, unfortunately, just really dull to me.
Yeah. Reluctant almost is the word I want to use.
Yeah. I mean, even like you go in with the setting of this Halloween party. We both like Halloween. Like, could be such an awesome setting. Children's party, a kid. I mean, kind of wild. A kid gets murdered here. Drowned underwater. Like, that should propel this story so fast into something exciting. It just does not at all. It somehow, the first half of the book just feels so meanderingly slow and uninterested in the mystery that it has set out. It's just strange to me.
Yeah. I don't really have much to add. It just wasn't very good, and I don't recommend you read the book.
Yeah, there was a good review I saw.
You want to read it?
Upon release that said, Halloween Party is a disappointment, but with all of her accomplishments, Miss Christie can be forgiven for some disappointments. Poirot seems weary, and so does this book. I feel like spot on. That's exactly how I feel. It just, there's such this energy to her other mystery novels because they're normally just so short. Like I feel like And Then There Were None is under 200 pages. Maybe it's like low, but they're very short. They're like, you are cruising through this, and Poirot is a maniac going around, doing his detective work. And this just does not have that at all. Really didn't work for me. I did wonder, was this harmed by me also seeing the movie first and suspecting who was going to be the culprit of all of this, that it took some of the fervor out of it? But I think it's still just bad.
Yeah, I did. I read it and then watched the movie, and I can say that it was bad for me.
Yeah.
I don't think you doing it the other way around would have enhanced your reading experience even a little bit.
No, not at all. One thing I did notice as I was reading was I did think a lot about Knives Out when I was reading the book.
So good.
Knives Out is so good. But Rian Johnson, the director of those movies, has stated he's a huge fan of Agatha Christie, huge source of inspiration. And I wonder if in the first Knives Out movie, I'll avoid spoilers in case you haven't seen it, there's a story of an au pair, or a sort of, in Knives Out, it's more of just kind of a live-in nurse in a way. And themes of class and a plot line that has a contention of the will. And that felt, and also the wondering and the questioning of who's entitled to this fortune in reality. That's kind of a little bit of a theme of Knives Out. And I think that was really hit on too in this book. So I will say, if this book inspired Knives Out, happy it happened.
Yeah, fair enough. And I do want to give Agatha Christie, and again, I've read one Agatha Christie book, but yeah, I want to give her credit because even with the amount of phoned in I think this was, my problem with writers of the genre today, and actually this is a problem I have with people that read these books too, they throw these random twists and turns that don't make sense in the book, and people are okay with it and think it's exciting, but it's like a twist for twist's sake. It doesn't further the plot. It doesn't come together. It doesn't have any creativity. They're just like, and then I'm your father, or the therapist did it. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense for the last 200 pages. You just wasted 3 hours of my life reading this book. And then when we as readers accept it, and people are rating these things 5 stars on Goodreads, and I'm like, are you illiterate? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my little soapbox. Anyway, the point of that is Agatha Christie didn't do that. I do feel like everything came together at the end, and you could see how everything tied together, and the twists didn't feel like they were twists for twist's sake.
Yeah, I mean, I think the code of a whodunit, which is hard to pull off, with a great level of craft, is the twists have to feel like they were in front of your face the whole time and don't come out of nowhere. The twist or the solution has to feel satisfying, and has to kind of align with like what kind of the themes going on throughout the book were. And I think when you like hit all of those at once, that's when like a whodunit really is like one of those like awesome Knives Out moment, towards the end when you feel it all coming together and you're like, oh, I should have known this. But I think for this, just all the plotting up to it just did not work to make it a worthwhile conclusion that I didn't really care about. And I also felt like I knew who was behind it, because even outside of Rowena, because Michael was the only interesting character in this book. So I'm like, he has to be involved because he's the only one getting billed out outside of like a cardboard frame of a local English person in this town.
No, that's totally fair. But even then, it still all made sense. Right? Yeah. Even if you saw it coming a mile away.
Puzzle pieces fit together.
Exactly.
So, didn't like this book. What did you think? And it's hard because you saw the movie before. We always talk about what's the most... Oh, you didn't? Mm-mm. You read this before the movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, then the question's perfect.
I was late to watching the movie, and then we decided to do this And then I found out how short the book was. So I did that.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, then, when you were reading this, what did you think the movie needed to do to be successful?
Be completely different than the book. Just anything other than what I was reading.
I know. If I break that down, I was like, the mood has to be way better. The atmosphere in the book is just terrible. It's just boring. Um, Talked about the characters. The characters in the book were just not engaging at all. Even Poirot, who is like, normally you're invested and enamored by the Sherlock Holmes type of character, and he feels exhausted in this book and uninteresting. And I just felt like there were no stakes in the book. And I'm
None.
like, I needed all of those to change for this movie to feel any sense of worthwhile.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Thinking about
You
the
wanna talk
movie. Yeah,
So you
let's
wanna
do
talk
it.
about the movie? Yeah.
Had you seen have you seen Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile?
I have not seen either one of those.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. So this is the third in the series of Poirot detective novels from Gilderoy Lockhart, aka Sir Kenneth Branagh. I've got a soft spot for this guy. He kind of seems like the type of dude who he knows what he likes, and he just spends all of his time doing kind of like those dorky things. Like he's just a theater actor who really loves like mystery novels and enjoys casting himself and directing these movies where he gets to play the lead in them. And he was Gilderoy, which is awesome. But so this one came out in September 2023, 20th Century Studios. Kind of a pretty star-studded cast. We'll talk about between the director playing Hercule Poirot, Tina Fey, Jamie Dornan, Kelly Riley, Michelle Yeoh, others. This grossed 122 million on a 60 million budget, so I'd say it probably like razor thin, maybe broke even, but did better than Death on the Nile. Murder on the Orient Express did very well upon release. Currently sitting at a 6.5 on IMDb. Nick, how do you feel about this movie? Or do you even want to give us a brief synopsis because it is so wildly different than the book?
Yeah. So it is still a whodunit mystery. It would feel very familiar in that sense. So just to set the stage, but essentially, the detective is asked to come to one last case. He says, I'm done, I'm not doing this. Do one last thing. And it becomes this almost pseudo horror movie, psychological thriller movie as the investigation goes on into the death of a young woman who was found in the water
Canal.
in Venice. Thank you. The canals of Venice. And she has this mysterious marking that goes along with this curse. And basically, everyone's like, it's the curse. It's paranormal, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nah, this is like, you're being ridiculous. That's not real. And then it's like, well, is it real? Is it not real? And you go through that whole process.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty pumped when I saw this coming out because this seemed to be taking a different tact of being more. They don't consider it horror, but there's definitely those spooky adjacent vibes to this.
Yeah.
So I was pretty pumped about that. It was a little bit of a
thriller.
change. Yeah. Yeah, like a psychological thriller. Yeah, maybe more so. How'd you feel about the movie?
Overall, I was pretty impressed with the movie. I've actually watched it more than once. I found it fun with moments where I'm on the edge of my seat. One of my favorite scenes in this movie, and we could talk about this in depth if you want, but is when he is looking in the mirror and he's over the sink and he thinks he's going crazy. You're starting to see him go into this, is the paranormal real? And they're just building the suspense with the lighting and the music. I think some of those elements were done really well. I thought the characters were portrayed very well. I think, at least compared to the characters in the book, the essence of those people was captured well. And overall, I think it was exactly the adaptation this book needed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that for the most part. We saw this in theaters. I drug
Nice.
Alyssa to go see it because I'm a stan for Agatha, and I love a mystery. So I was definitely going to go see this one. It was also like it came out pretty close to Halloween. I think it was like September 15th. So it's like, here's a spooky movie that I can probably handle coming out. Like, let's go see it. I had fun. Definitely my favorite of the three new sort of Poirot series that has come out. And I like that it took such a different track than the other ones in terms of bringing in a little bit of those psychological horror elements we talked about. I'd say like it's I don't it sounds bad to say this movie's fine or it's just okay, and I don't mean that as like a critique of it or a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I mean by that is I feel like movies like this are like important where it comes out, it mostly satisfies you, pretty middle of the road. Like not every movie is going to be a best picture winner or
Yeah.
have this huge, meaning behind it when there are some pretty big themes in this one. But I feel like having a thriving film industry, you need movies that are fun, but still have a level of craft and care, which I feel this movie has. And I get that Kenneth Branagh just like really loves this genre and loves making these movies. And I feel like that comes through. And we had fun watching it. I wasn't like itching to watch it again because I'd already seen it. But I wasn't like completely upset to have to tune in again. So overall, yeah, pretty good for me.
What'd you give casting?
Casting, uh, casting's an interesting one. I gave this a 3.5, which is above average. I think I like Branagh as Hercule. I think he's really good in that role. Michelle Yeoh, I wish she was in this more. I thought it was really fun, the change of who Joyce Reynolds is, and maybe we can talk about that in the plot section. I just wish we had more of her. We don't get more of her because Joyce dies very early
Spoiler
on.
alert. Yeah.
um, I'm conflicted on Tina Fey in this, in that I like Tina Fey and I like the energy she brings, but it almost just watching it, it felt like a performance to me in a way. It really stuck out as like, I know that's Tina Fey. I know she's like acting as this woman. And I don't know, for some reason that one just didn't land for me as well. And that's not a critique of her. As I think she's hilarious and very good in other things. But for some reason in this role, she just like really stuck out to me as like, this is not a Ariadne Oliver in the 1940s. I don't know if you agree with that or had any issues with any of the cast.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I kind of got that vibe from a lot of the other characters as well.
Hmm.
And it felt like it was intended to have these kind of over the top characters in this, well, to balance out the horror of it. It felt like some of those things were intentional to kind of bring it back down to more of like a just not a feel good movie, obviously, but like a more level set emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a common through line of many whodunits is there's a bit of camp always involved in them and a little over the topness.
Yeah.
We just watched Clue recently and like everything is over the top in that movie, or even Knives Out, like Daniel Craig is being so ridiculous, but for some reason he slips into it a little bit more. But for some reason, I just really bumped up against Tina Fey in this one. I don't know why. But it's
Fair
what
enough.
it is. I thought the kid in this was excellent. I think his name is Jude Hill. He plays Leopold. I thought he was awesome in this movie. Like really good as a child actor.
Yeah.
Is that his
Jude
name?
Hill.
Jude
Yep.
Hill.
Sorry, I was looking at my list of
No, you're good.
characters here. Yeah. Jude Hill. Agreed.
Yeah, I thought he did an awesome job. And with a welcome change from his book counterpart.
Yes, for sure. I also liked Jamie
Dornan.
Yeah,
Is he 50 Shades of Grey guy, right?
He is. So never seen that. But I I liked the role he played as the doctor that is struggling
Yeah.
with his internal demons. I thought he did a very nice job there.
Yeah, he was a welcome addition because I don't think that character existed in the books.
No, no, but I felt he really added that character, and Jamie's performance of that character added to the movie.
Yeah. No, I definitely liked him. I felt like even though it was just that 1-2 punch of Jude Hill's playing his son in the movie, and I feel like them together just really worked. And then also Poirot seeing himself a little bit in this kid who's a bit precocious, probably a little bit mature and wise beyond his years. So I kind of enjoyed that dynamic of Poirot being aged at this point
Mm-hmm.
and seeing someone who reminds him of himself from younger years. It's kind of that little bit of a sliding door, moment for him. Anything else you got on casting?
No, gave it a. I actually gave it a 4.
For plot. So this is quite different. I think there were so many changes, and I think the big one here is we said in the book, this is all kicked off trying to solve who murdered a 13-year-old girl at a Halloween party. In the movie adaptation, Joyce Reynolds, the name of the girl in the book, is played by Michelle Yeoh, who is a what'd you call it, like a seance psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And Poirot is gathered here with the others at the request of Rowena Drake to solve what happened to Rowena's daughter, whose name is Alicia Drake, I believe.
Yes.
And in the early stages of trying to solve that, Joyce is murdered at this sort of creepy mansion in Venice. And that kind of kicks off the whodunit where they are all locked in, where Nick and I would just leave. And Poirot sets out to solve not only who murdered Joyce tonight, but what is behind Alicia Drake as well.
They got trapped. They didn't choose this day, right? There was like the water came up and they couldn't get out of the house.
I thought the
Could be
water
making that
did
up.
come up, but I thought they also locked the gate and Poirot had his police guy friend stand guard to not let any of them
Yeah, that's
try
right.
and get out. But there was a storm coming in for sure. I don't know. How did you? So, I mean, you obviously said you liked it. So these changes worked for you.
Yeah, I think it worked as a standalone plot. You had several characters that had a clear arc. You had interesting moments. I felt the beats worked well, one after another. I didn't feel like I felt like everything was a therefore, not a then, this happened, therefore this happens, not this happened and then this happened. And that sort of randomness you sometimes get in movies
Mm-hmm.
and bad books. I didn't get any of that. I don't know. I mean, there was some witty dialogue. There were some suspenseful elements. It was good. It was above average for sure, I think, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. And I feel like if I'm trying to compare like the themes of what went on from the book versus the movie, because I don't think they're the same. It felt like the book was really focused on Poirot not wanting to be involved in this and being past sort of his detective days. And while that exists in that, I think there was this added theme of Poirot questioning, is he like Joyce? And she says this to him, just a person who prays and makes their living off other people's deaths. And that's how he is important, and that's how he made his living all of these years. And if there weren't people dying and being murdered, he would not have a job. So there's like a little bit of that added in, which I found way more interesting in the movie. Yeah, we talked about Leslie Ferrier being added, who is Jamie Dornan, and kind of, themes of like trauma that he's dealing with and going through that with his son. So I really enjoyed that change where, I think some of the aging themes in the book just came from like, it felt like a little bit just Agatha being older, and, the things of like, the world's a little different than it used to be. Like there was like a lot of comments like that in the book.
Yeah.
Um, and the other one, which doesn't exist in kind of the movie, was Joyce was a pathological liar, I guess you could say, in the book. So I did think it really funny that in the movie she is a like seance psychic. So they're translating this 13-year-old girl who can't stop lying into this woman who's claiming to be a psychic. I thought that was like a funny jab at Joyce and the profession of psychics.
Yeah. I had not put that together. That is really funny.
Was there anything in this movie plot wise that didn't work for you?
No? I don't know. It's been a minute. But I can't. No, I think even the parts where I was like, I felt maybe it was a little unnecessary or a little bit much. I don't
Yeah.
think it was bad.
Yeah.
So like, it depends on how you say like, isn't working for me. Like there weren't really any points where it lost my interest because what they were doing was pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the things that stuck out to me, and maybe to explain the end a little bit or recall for those who had seen it, was it turns out that in a way, Rowena Drake, the mother who brought them all together, she invited them all because she was being blackmailed after her daughter's death. And she was using this as an opportunity to pick off each and every one of them who she was suspecting of being the blackmailers.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that she had murdered her daughter somewhat accidentally. She was giving her this honey that was like in low doses was hallucinogenic and caused her to be dependent on her mother. And the one night, the sort of nurse who was there taking care, the housekeeper in a way, gave her an overdose of it, and Alicia Drake died. So Rowena threw her over the edge and created the story that, the spirits of this house attacked her and killed her, or maybe it was suicide. It was declared as. So all that to say of like what might not have worked for me was, I think, the drugging of Poirot throughout the movie so that he's seeing things within the house didn't totally work for me. I did really like the honey drug plot line in terms of it being what killed Alicia, and the mother didn't intentionally do it, but she was definitely had a hand in, being the source of it happening. So I really liked that, and I really liked her bringing them all there to kill the blackmailer, find out who it was. But it did kind of stink that all the sort of hijinks that Poirot was seeing in this house throughout was all due to just him taking a little bit of this honey in his tea.
I actually like that as a
solution.
Not even solution, but as the device they used to take this detective who is very clearly grounded in there's a cause and effect.
Yeah.
Like everything can be explained, and making him question his own beliefs. And then as like a red herring for what's going on. And then you kind of don't know where they're going with the movie anymore because of that. And I actually thought that was pretty interesting as a way to keep people who have read it on their toes. And then just as a watcher, I thought it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only thing that maybe confused me then is, so at the very end, after Poirot does the classic, here's what happened, Rowena, confronts him to kill him on the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
And they're standing out there in the rain on the balcony. and there's that crack of lightning, and you see Alicia floating behind
Hmm.
her, and it's almost like then Rowena just like they show it as like she's like grabbed by the spirit and pulled back into the water, but maybe just like stumbles and falls over the edge. Um, so I was questioning, like, did he really see anything there? Was he still under the effects of the honey? Like, kind of what was going on in that end scene? That's kind of the only part that confused me a little bit.
I think you're supposed to feel that way because the
Yeah.
whole time is it supernatural? Is it based in just cause and effect, or is it somewhat both? I think, it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I liked that element, and that felt like another part of that element, but I can see where how usually in whodunits everything's so neatly tied up that could be
Yeah.
annoying if that's what you were looking for.
You want to give me a score, and then I'll give you some nominees for best scene?
Yeah, I got 3 out of 5 here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
liked it.
Sorry, go ahead. You have.
I said I liked it. It was above average, so 3.5.
Yeah. Yeah. I give it a 3 as well. That was good. Nothing like knock your socks off, but an enjoyable experience for me, just kind of watching it. Scenes. I really love the puppet show they did. I thought that was so cool
Oh, in the
in the
beginning,
movie,
yeah.
with like the sheet where they're essentially showing, it's kind of almost like the beginning of Moana, like what these children's spirits are doing.
Yeah.
And they do these like kind of cool, like old timey puppets, projected with light behind the sheet. I thought that was really cool. So just kind of explaining the history of this house and why we should be creeped out this entire movie and maybe seeing spirits. Second scene. This all happens in real quick succession in one scene. Poirot is almost murdered himself, bobbing for apples, which I thought was a nice tie back to the book.
Yeah.
Joyce dies, which we find out because Rowena Drake thought Poirot was Joyce because he was wearing all of Joyce's like garb and mask, and then Hercule locks them in and says he is not letting any of them leave until they solve who killed Joyce Reynolds tonight. That was a great
Because he
scene.
has that kind of authority.
Yeah, because he
as
has
a
that kind of
civilian.
authority. As a civilian who's retired.
Yeah.
Third scene. Not from even a plot perspective, but just the ambiance. When they go into the basement that is like really flooded out and they're finding like the children's skeletons, super creepy down there. That's where Leslie has like his kind of panic attack and attacks Maxine, Alicia's former fiance. I don't know if they were engaged or just dating.
Fiance.
4, gotta have it. The reveal of the mystery, the rundown of what happened in Rowena's death, and then kind of what always happens in an Agatha. It's like the further conclusion where he ties in the bits of everyone else's involvement. The brother and sister who are trying to get to St. Louis and how they were skimming off Rowena to save up to go to Missouri. And Leopold, the kid, was the one actually blackmailing Rowena to get money because his father couldn't work because he was dealing with PTSD from the war. Just tying of all those little loose ends together. So what was your favorite scene of the movie?
Going with those, I would pick your third one, where it was the murder of Joyce Reynolds / the attempted murder of our detective here. That was really fast-paced, exciting sequence.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of like, what's going on? Well, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
We didn't give best casting. Who you got? We didn't give the award.
I mean, can I give it to the kid, Jude Hill? I thought he was great in this.
Do it.
I thought he was awesome.
Our first child actor winner.
Yeah, he was great.
Congratulations, Jude Hill. Let us know your address and we'll mail you the award.
I thought Kelly Riley was really good too as Rowena. I always enjoy Kelly Riley in a movie.
Yeah. Michelle Yeoh would have been on that list.
The short list nominees.
Yeah, and I probably would have had Jamie, and Kenneth as well to round out the 5.
All right. World building aesthetics. How'd you feel about that?
Aesthetically, it was sweet. I gave it
was sweet.
4.5 out of 5. I'm going to say.
Yeah.
There's in terms of the world, I don't know that it did anything like world building. It didn't do anything groundbreaking, but aesthetically, it was awesome, and it honestly made me think maybe I should go back and watch Murder on the Orient Express because I did enjoy the movie. So maybe there was more world building than I thought there was. But either way, I'm just gonna give it a 4 out of 5 because from that aspect, I really enjoyed it. I love how in the beginning and the end, it's much lighter, much brighter out. But then as you get into the house where this murder's happened, it's darker tones. And as you start going down this psychological journey, it gets darker and darker and creepier. And then on the backside, things start lighting up throughout the movie as he comes back down, as he figures it out, as he solves it, everything.
Yeah.
The use of color here was fantastic.
Yeah, I think they really benefited from this also being confined to this one house. And even though they used various sets within this house in Venice, it was a little more consolidated and they just look so good. They really looked lived in. This is a pseudo period piece as it's taking place in the 40s, and all that, the costumes and all that stuff looked really great. Venice looked nice. Very minimal like CGI in this because they're just kind of in rooms moving around.
Yeah.
Probably the only one is when Joyce gets impaled through the statue. And I'm like, there would definitely be blood and guts on that, and there's not.
Yeah.
No,
Which
this
was
is
a
cool.
nice touch, by the way. I sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
That was a nice touch to not have this one random over the top bloody gory moment. It fit in with the rest of the movie very well.
Yeah, that is the exact part where I'd be like, I don't care if you want to investigate this. I'm not staying here where this woman is impaled upon a statue. I'm out. Apologies.
Peace.
No, but I agree. I give this a 4 out of 5 here as well. I thought it looked a lot better than Death on the Nile because the Death on the Nile is way more of a sort of gallivanting one. You're kind of on the water the whole time on the Nile. There's a lot going on. I think this just looked really crisp. It looked really real too, which I appreciated a lot. A quick thing that I thought was interesting, and I'm assuming this was intentional since they focused on it, kind of in the world building area. So in the beginning, there was the Adam and Eve clock, cuckoo clock, and I was wondering, there's definitely an Apple reference there. And I wonder if it's also a reference to the book where the culprits are Rowena and Michael, kind of man and a woman, where in this one, it's a little bit changed where there's not really kind of her male accomplice. It's just Rowena here. But I was like, that Apple clock is definitely intentional, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think having those throwbacks, not like we didn't talk about this in plot, or not much, but having those throwbacks to the book is a really nice touch for those that put the work in and suffered through that book.
Yeah.
To get a little bit of payoff there.
Yeah, I guess one big change we didn't touch on is in the movie, the relationship between Tina Fey's character Ariadne and Hercule really fracture in this movie. And they're kind of going their separate ways, where Ariadne was kind of using Poirot to set him up to seem like not a phony, but, to kind of use him to help write another novel for herself. And that's a bit of a bummer for me because Ariadne is a recurring character in Agatha novels and a very good friend to him. So it kind of sucks to see that kind of fracture there. I'm not like overly bent up about it, but it's kind of like a book's legacy to the movie. A little unfortunate.
Is that a kind of nod to what we were talking about with this being the end of Agatha's career and her wanting to maybe move on, stop writing, maybe try something else, and being forced into doing this extra story she didn't want to do to write another book, and like using this character for other people's gain?
Yeah, could be a nod to that in the movie.
there.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It
No,
feels
it's a
like
good thought.
something's there, but until you
Yeah.
said it, I hadn't thought about it. So I don't really have that fleshed out in my head yet.
No. Yeah, it's a good thought. Soundtrack.
I
Did you
liked it.
feel yeah.
I mean, it was fine. It's really
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I think when it's just okay, I like it because I felt like the music
Yeah.
blended into the movie pretty well. I thought the use of sound, like just as a broader
Yeah.
use of sound, was good. Like when they decided to amplify sound effects versus not, glass breaking. Uh, I thought the fight scene was appropriate. Like the sound it makes when you hit somebody wasn't blown out. Like,
Yeah.
and then the soundtrack just kind of blended into the movie, which is exactly what it should do, in my opinion, unless you're having like pop music sound drops.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish there was a little bit, the occasional beginning and end. I think opening credits, closing credits, they use some period piece, wouldn't call them pop songs, but jazzy, old-timey songs.
Yeah, but it fit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I found like the soundtrack, the original soundtrack to be just kind of like aggressively fine, like not in a good or bad way. It's just there.
Yeah,
Uh Works for the mood of the movie, but it's kind of just safe and uninteresting. It's not like it's like the Halloween soundtrack or something like that.
right.
Um I normally listen to the soundtracks. I think I mentioned this before as I write the notes or my notes out. And I had to turn this one off after like 3 to 4 because it was just so boring. I was like, there was just nothing going on. But
That's
I agree.
funny.
I agree that the sound effects of this that they did a real good job on. Soundtrack is just like felt like they knew what their role was and they just kind of stuck to it, which that's fine. It's fine. It's better than it sticking out in a bad way. I gave it a 2.5, just middle of the road. It was fine for me.
I gave it a 3.5 because of the other uses of sound being so good.
Cool. Legacy
But I
standalone
agree
appeal.
that hang
Yeah.
on, I agree that the
Yeah.
soundtrack itself by itself is probably like a 2.5, middle of the
Yeah.
pack. But
Yeah.
like we said, I really thought the rest of it was done very well. So I
Yeah.
had
I'd
to
agree with that. Legacy standalone?
definitely a good standalone appeal. I
Hmm.
think you have to give it at least a 3 here. I gave it a 4. I think while this movie is not fantastic, it is good. It will come up again around this time, it being October.
Hmm.
For a while, it's Agatha Christie, so people will find it that way. I think it's gonna have a legacy. People keep coming back. Maybe a new generation will find it and enjoy it as well. And as a standalone, you don't need the book. You don't need any background on Agatha Christie or these characters. It works from
Yeah.
start to finish.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, standalone works way better than the book, 100%. I think it's my favorite of the trilogy, I've said. I enjoyed it much more than the previous entry, Death on the Nile. Felt like a
But
real fresh take. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's the thing is, I've never even seen Death on the
Yeah.
Nile, and I understood exactly who these characters were right
Hmm.
off the bat for
Yeah.
standalone.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you see Poirot and it's like every detective for some reason is, he's enigmatic, quirky, very precise, has a mustache, wears some funny hat. Like you've seen one, you've seen them all. And he's just her variation. He's a Sherlock. He's what is the Auguste Dupin from, I think of him from the Poe novels and then in the Mike Flanagan adaptation,
Hmm.
House of Usher, that type of detective. And yeah, I mean, I felt like this was a fresh take. I'm glad they loosely
Yeah.
adapted it.
Yep.
I don't think that this is going to like have this huge legacy as a, you know, Halloween movie, but these type of movies are important. This is a type of movie where if you were hanging out with your entire family and you needed to watch something in the Halloween season, this is a safe movie to throw on. It's pretty
Yes.
good. It appeals to everyone, and it's satisfying in the end. You have a good time. You might not watch it every single year. You're not like blown away, like I was when I watched Knives Out, but I had a good time with it.
Yeah, that's a good take. I like that a lot. You know what we should my only regret for this entire
Mhm.
podcast, we didn't shave mustaches and do our
Yeah,
faces.
should have done that. Regrets. Next time, we'll find a good excuse to. I gave it a 3 on this one, just because I don't think it's going to have a huge legacy, but I think it did a really good job as a standalone. And I think it's a fun movie for the whole family to watch. You'll have a good time with it. And
Yeah, can you lower me to a 3.5?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I can't fully agree with you because I just can't do it. But but I think a 3.5 is better than a 4 here.
Perfect. So that rounds us out at a 34, just pretty good. It's middle of the road, decent score.
Slightly above average.
Above average. Casting gave to Jude Hill. Best scene, we went with kind of the Hercule locks them in, bobbing for apples, Joyce's death, all that. Who won the movie for you?
Honestly, Jude Hill.
Go back to him.
Fans of Agatha Christie probably would say they won this because they got a better adaptation than the book. They took to your point earlier, they took it seems to be widely considered the worst entry of the series, and they made it better.
Yeah. I'd also go with Kenneth Branagh. Like, he, this is the third one of these. Did pretty well at the box office, generally positive critic review. And like the point you made, he took a novel from an author that he loves, and I think he made it better. And I think he took a totally different spin on usual Agatha Christie by adding some of these spooky horror elements to it that had solutions to them, for the most part. And I liked it. I thought he came out looking real good in this one.
Yeah, that's a really good point too.
Yeah.
So he directed, but did he write this as well?
No. He might have been a co-writer. What was her name? Or no, it was written by Michael Green, who kind of some crazy writing credits. He also wrote Blade Runner 2049, Logan, the Alien Covenant movie. So it's kind of a mixed track record, depending on your tastes. But writing on Blade Runner 2049 is pretty good credit to have there. He also did the other two, though, Agatha Christie adaptations that have come out. So I guess he's his consistent writer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Anything else you got to say on this adaptation?
No.
Yeah.
The World Series is going to be dumb.
Yeah, World Series is going to be dumb, so you should go stream. This is on Disney Plus, I think, right now.
Oh, nice.
98% sure of that. I think that's what I watched it on a couple days ago. So if you got young kids, this is the perfect movie to throw on. I'd say maybe below 10, they might be scared. But if they're in that range, I don't know, early teen, 11, 12, this is a movie that they could enjoy as well as yourself, I think.
Do you want to throw out some, do you have any Halloween recommendations for anyone who may be listening?
Oof. Halloween recommendations. Do you have anything currently in mind, if you can give me some time to stall?
Yeah, I think if you've got some time it's another 4-letter show from the creators of Lost. And of the writers of the first 3 seasons, at least. And it is essentially a horror version of that. It is really spooky. They're on their 3rd season right now. It comes out every week. It's on MGM Plus, which is weird, but you can just make free accounts and you're going to binge it and you're going to have nightmares and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm a fan of that. I was a huge Lost head, so I will definitely.
You should watch
that.
From. Seriously. I'll give you my MGM login because I have like a free trial going right now.
I didn't even know MGM had a subscription service.
I didn't either until I found this show on TikTok.
My recommendations. We talked about this earlier. It's What's Inside.
Yes.
Had a good time with it. It was pretty fun. It's not like, a 5 out of 5 movie, but read it. I thought it was a really interesting concept. I wouldn't look up anything about it. I would just go into it and watch it. It's not a horror, I would say.
Thriller.
Yeah, thriller. We also watched So a movie came out this year, Maxine, which kind of in the slasher-ish genre. And we
Okay.
watched the first one of the series called X, by director Ty West. And I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. It's pretty raunchy, so uh, going with some maybe hesitation if you don't like that. But it's essentially set in the 70s. This group of kids, essentially, maybe ranging 20 to 35, are going to make a porno, and they're renting out this
Okay.
shack in Texas, and shit goes down in rural Texas as they're trying to make this. But apparently Maxine's very good. That's the reason we watched it, because it just came to HBO Max. So I'd say definitely check that one out. I dropped it earlier on the pod. We watched Clue on Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure it's free on there. The 1985 movie Clue. Just amazing fun. Truly amazing fun. 4.5 out of 5. I gave that one on Letterboxd. Like, I had a blast with this movie.
Okay.
It's just so silly and ridiculous.
That's high
But
praise.
has some good spooky vibes.
Is it like the board game?
It's based on the board game, yeah. So it's like so accurate. We might have to cover it.
Yeah.
Play a game of Clue and then cover this. Yeah, I'm a huge Clue fan in terms of the board game. But yeah, it's an awesome one. Are you gonna go see Smile 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still gotta watch
Pumped.
Smile 1. Yeah. There's a few. I haven't watched Long Legs. I heard a lot about that this year. We're gonna watch Trap, the new M. Night Shyamalan. I think that's coming to Max this weekend. Strange Darling, I've heard a lot about. The Substance, those are some heavy hitters. I'm not doing Terrifier. No Art the Clown for me. I'm staying far away from that. I would, if you consider it horror, Alien Romulus kind of kicked ass for me. I liked it. If you're a diehard Alien fan, some things might upset you, but I thought it was a good movie. You asked for couple recommendations.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know
all
that
you
I
need
would
to do.
consider that horror, but it's a good recommendation. I think you should see that movie anyway.
Yeah. Did you see it?
No, not yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah. Aliens, they're in a weird spot in terms of like what genre you would consider them. Because the first one is almost like a horror, but the second one is definitely not. It's a little more campy, which I enjoy, but it's definitely not a horror. Romulus was pretty scary. Like, things kind of ramped up at the end of it for me.
I gotta check it out. It's been on my list for
a
long time.
I was thinking of you as well. We watched I Know What You Did Last Summer, some Freddie Prinze Jr. I know how much you love Freddie Prinze. That's also just like, if you want to be nostalgic for the 90s, go watch that movie. He's great in it. Sarah Michelle Gellar's great in it. Jennifer Love Hewitt's great in it. It's like a awkwardly bad, but kind of great 90s movie. Just go watch it.
You threw out some big names there. Some names that I haven't said in a while. Yeah.
I know. Well, I know Freddie Prinze Jr. Yeah. You're his biggest stan.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'm in the club.
Yeah, you're in the club. Yeah. Hey, note from the editor here. I wanted to shout out one more movie that I forgot about and remembered after we wrapped up recording. Late Night with the Devil. Check it out. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. You might have to do AMC Plus. I think we signed up for that and then forgot about it after the free trial ended, so we were able to watch it. But check it out. Maybe do the same. They're pitching it as a late night talk show on a live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong when they bring on a guest who unleashes a demon on the recording of the episode. Really good stuff. Super original, really creative, just a fun movie. One of my favorite that I've seen this year in the horror genre. So definitely check that out. Cool. Let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening, everybody. Like we said, next episode, Ready Player One. We're going to have some guests on. Retrotopia Boys. They have a retro video game podcast. They're going to come on, talk about this adaptation. I've been rereading it. I read this book a long time ago, and I'm revisiting it for the first time. I got to say, I'm liking it more than I did the first time. I barely remember the movie. So I'll be interested to check that out again as well.
It's a candidate for the Greg Hinkson Rewatch Award.
Really?
Spoiler to people.
The movie?
Yeah. I've seen that movie a lot.
Giving out the awards, we haven't even had the the episode yet.
I'm just saying we're going to have to talk about it.
Yeah. It's good to know. If you have thoughts or questions, talking to you, Greg Hinkson, about Ready Player One, you can reach out to us. Nick won't read your email, but I will. Or you can message us
I'm
on
going to get
Instagram.
a phone call on Thursday when this comes out. He's
you're going to get
hey, we got to talk about Ready Player One. You got a pen and paper?
Yeah, you're going to get a voice note that you're going to have to transcribe. If you have any suggestions, let us know as well. Like Nick said, you can follow us, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, rate and review, 5 stars only. Or, we're going to trap you in a spooky house, not let you leave when we have no authority to do that. Most importantly, tell your friends about it. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for reading this shitty book. Sorry, this was your first Agatha Christie.
You're not forgiven.
All right, later, man.
See ya.